The girl whom everyone calls Putin's alleged daughter has stepped out of the shadows. This was reported by the German newspaper Bild. The media quickly picked up and spread the news, quoting Lisa Rozova, also known as Liza Rednova. Putin's alleged daughter wrote the following words: "It's so wonderful to show my face to the world again. It reminds me every day of who I was born as and who destroyed my life. The person who took millions of lives and ruined mine." But is it really her account on social media where two new photos appeared? TSN has been following her life for several years now. My colleague Valeria Kovalinska has conducted several major investigations, and it was she who uncovered that the girl is studying in Paris under a new cover surname. So stay tuned for more in the upcoming report.
A well-known German publication and an article dedicated to Putin's alleged daughter. They present it as a sensation with the headline, "The Phantom Daughter Settles Scores with Putin." And next, a quote supposedly from Lisa Rozova, "It's so nice to show my face to the world again." But is there really a sensation here? And has the girl believed to be Putin's illegitimate daughter truly stepped out of the shadows? The publication refers to a Telegram channel called, in translation, Lisa's Art, but it can't be found. Many media outlets have picked up both this news and an old post from 2022, publishing them as new quotes that supposedly show the girl's attitude toward the war. Supposedly, Liza writes that she is surprised some people seriously think she is involved in the events happening in the world and that she has some incredible ability to change everything. Next is a quote, "Let's think together and answer this question. Would a person really go so mad as to literally declare war on the whole world and then back down from their decisions because of some parental feelings?" But once again, we emphasize that this is a quote from a post on an unverified account belonging to a girl believed to be the illegitimate daughter of the Russian dictator. And journalist Andrei Zakharov, who was the first to start investigating the lives of Liza and her mother 5 years ago, calls this account fake. I think the same way. For her studies, the girl chose a private educational institution near the Arc de Triomphe in the center of Paris. TSN conducted its own investigation and not only found the place where Louisa studied, but also discovered her new last name and patronymic, as well as people who knew her. We also thoroughly examined her social media and can say that even the account name is different. Louisa closed her real account at the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. On the account, whose owner is unknown, a story like this was posted the day before. Next, a quote, "Some kind of madness is happening right now. Stop writing to me. I have nothing to do with politics. I have nothing to do with what's happening in the world. I won't comment on anything people are writing to me about right now. Let me remind you how the world found out about Putin's illegitimate daughter, Liza." Russian journalists from the publication Proact were investigating the girl's mother, Svetlana Kravonagik, because of her rapid financial rise. That's when they discovered that she had a daughter. In the father field on the girl's documents, there was a dash, but her patronymic was Vladimirovna. When they saw photos of the girl, the journalist had no doubt about who Kravonagik's child's father was. She is currently under sanctions from the United Kingdom. Last fall, TSN found out that the girl lives and studies in Paris under a new cover surname. Now she is Liza Olegievna Rednova. And it is this change that points to the girl's connection to the dictator. Oleg Rednov was a close friend of the president of Russia. He died 10 years ago. This summer, it became known that Lisa works in galleries in Paris and the suburbs of the French capital, where both Ukrainian and Russian anti-war artists exhibit their works. This was first reported by the Russian artist Nastya Rodionova, who moved to Paris at the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Here is a quote from Nastya's post on Facebook, "I believe in the presumption of innocence, that children are not responsible for the crimes of their parents. But during wartime, a meeting between the beneficiaries of the regime and its victims is unacceptable." Nastya tells me that she went to the gallery to see for herself.
"I arranged a meeting with Delinsky and asked if they had Liza, the daughter of Svetlana Kravonagik, working there. I didn't immediately mention Putin's name or refer to that, because the answer would have given me enough information anyway. He started saying that he doesn't check the family backgrounds of his employees, that he can't say yes or no, because he doesn't have that information. He quoted Stalin and said that children are not responsible for their parents. I said, then tell me her last name. He said he doesn't remember it. He glanced around, took out his phone, got flustered, stepped away for a minute, then came back to me and said her last name is Rednova.
Dmitry Dolinsky and also Alexander Vishnevsky are Louisa's employers. They confirmed to TSN that Luisa Rednova works for them, but after the Russian artist's post, she temporarily stopped coming to work at the gallery.
We have an employee whose documents say Liza Rednova, and who, according to your investigation, is Putin's daughter. But on paper, she is Liza Rednova. At least, according to the documents she provided, she is Liza Rednova. Based on this, we can only state that she is Luisa Rednova. She does not deny that she is the daughter of Svetlana Krivonigic. The fact of whether she is Putin's biological daughter or not seems rather unclear to us. Yes, there are certain things that point to this, but she herself does not confirm it. There is no physical or scientific evidence for this. But overall, it seems to me that in this situation, that's not the most important thing. Even if we assume that your investigation really sheds some truth and she is indeed Vladimir Putin's biological daughter, it's not entirely clear what that changes. I mean, there's a person who studies, lives, and works in a gallery that exhibits anti-war artists. And if, at the same time, we assume that she is Putin's daughter, then it's more, I don't know, a civic act on her part.
In June, when I was in Paris, I called Liza, but those phone calls went unanswered. Ukrainian writer Irina Karpa, who lives in Paris, then suggested that even if the girl is theoretically against the war, she can't say so.
There's just no way, yeah, because, well, that's a direct connection. Even if we imagine that she doesn't want to have anything to do with it, she'll never show it. It's simply dangerous for her.
Here are photos and videos taken this year in one of the galleries where 22-year-old Liza works. And here she looks older than the girl in the Instagram photos that are presented as new, as well as in the pictures published by Bild, supposedly from her Telegram channel. The hairstyles are noticeably different. So, it's likely that someone is simply using old photos of Liza and pretending to be her. So who does this and why? The question is open. What do you think? Write about it in the comments. And you can watch the full videos of the investigations about Louise on the TSN YouTube channel. Valeria Kovalinska, TSN 1+1.
Meanwhile, the German publication Bild has already withdrawn this article from its website. The article stayed up there for just over a day.
They expected some kind of statement from us, like, "Attention, Putin's daughter works here."
I had a kind of cognitive dissonance, because this information just didn't fit into my everyday reality at all.
I think I wouldn't want to run into her on the street. She looks a lot like her father.
This is the 20th arrondissement of Paris. To give you an idea of where that is, the famous Père Lachaise cemetery is located here. And on one of the small streets, there's a little gallery called Le Gallery, where Putin's alleged daughter, Luisa Rednova, works. In the French capital, we meet with the artist and poet Nastia Rodionova, a Russian woman who, at the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, moved here from Moscow and received political refugee status.
Before leaving, I took part in anti-war protests, putting up homemade crosses around the city with signs saying that there were already 5,000 civilian casualties in Mariupol, that people were burying the dead in their apartment courtyards, and that this was not a special operation, but a war.
It was Nastia who wrote on Facebook that a 22-year-old Russian woman named Liza was working in one of the Parisian galleries. Here's a quote from that post. "I believe in the presumption of innocence, that children are not responsible for the crimes of their parents. But during wartime, a meeting between someone from the families of the regime's beneficiaries and its victims is unacceptable." Before publishing this post, Nastia wanted to verify the information that the gallery employed Putin's illegitimate daughter, so she went to the gallery owner to ask directly if it was true.
I arranged a meeting with Dolinsky and asked if Liza, the daughter of Svetlana Krivonigic, worked there. I didn't mention Putin's name right away or refer to him, because the answer would have given me enough information anyway. He started saying that he doesn't check the family backgrounds of his employees, that he couldn't say yes or no because he didn't have that information. He quoted Stalin and said that children are not responsible for their parents. I said, "Then tell me her last name." He said he didn't remember it. He kind of looked around, took out his phone, got flustered, stepped away for a minute, then came back to me and said her last name was Rednova.
Did the people who became Putin's daughter's employers, the owners of the gallery, Dmytro Dolinsky and Alexander Vishnevsky, really not know who they were hiring? What did Liza herself tell them about who she was? More on this coming up on TSN. A creative space in Paris where, among others, Russian and Ukrainian artists exhibit their work. Nastya Rodionova was here at the invitation of an artist friend, reading her poetry. I asked about the artist's reaction to her post.
The artists reacted in different ways. Those who exhibited there, the ones I talked to, mostly wrote to me saying they were shocked, outraged, and had no idea. However, many artists who oppose the war with Russia and are now in France as political refugees have criminal cases opened against them in Russia. If they collaborated with these institutions, they sent them their valid French documents and all their personal information, and they were very worried about the situation.
I meet with Dmytro Dolinsky and Alexander Vishnevsky at their gallery in Paris. They have been living in France since the early 90s. Alexander is originally from Kharkiv, and Dmytro is from Latvia. The latter worked as a visa services manager at the company Tsar Voyage, which organized trips for French people to vacation in Russia. In the fall of 2021, these two natives of the post-Soviet space founded the association VEL, and later, the Gallery. On its social media page, the stated purpose of its founding is to support persecuted artists and anti-war activists. It is in this gallery that we meet. I start the conversation with the main question: do they really have Putin's alleged daughter working here?
We have a person working here whose documents say Liza Rednova, and who, according to your investigation, is Putin's daughter. But on her documents, she's Liza Rednova?
Ladislav Rednov, Agent, UK. She is Liza Rednova.
At least, according to the documents she provided, she is Liza Rednova. Based on this, we can only state that she is Liza Rednova.
She does not deny that she is the daughter of Svetlana Krivonichik.
Svetlana Krivonichik is one of the richest women in Russia. Her financial rise is linked to close ties with the Kremlin. She became known in 2020 thanks to an investigation by Russian journalists from the publication Proact. How a resident of an ordinary communal apartment in St. Petersburg turned into a millionaire with elite real estate in the center of Moscow and St. Petersburg, and a shareholder of the Rossiev Bank. After the birth of her daughter, Krivonichik also became the owner of an apartment in Monaco. According to investigative journalists, she received it as a gift. It is Svetlana Krivonichik who is called Putin's former lover and the mother of his illegitimate third daughter, Liza Krivonichik. The girl herself called herself Lisa Rozova on social media and during interviews. According to Russian media, her patronymic in her birth certificate is Vladimirovna, but the father field is left blank. A few years ago, the girl took a new last name, Rednova, and a new patronymic, Olegovna. That was the name of one of Putin's close friends. TSN was the first to find out about and report this change.
We'll leave what was kept secret.
Liza's mother, Svetlana Krivonichik, is currently under sanctions by the United Kingdom. In Paris, I'm told that the girl doesn't communicate with her mother, but keeps in touch with her grandmother Nadia and her aunt, who live in St. Petersburg. They even came to one of her exhibitions 6 months ago. Here they are in the photo. Nastya recalls that meeting.
She looked at the paintings, talked with the artists, and was there with her aunt and grandmother. Someone asked, "Is that your mom?" She replied that it was her grandmother and aunt, who had come to Paris for a week from St. Petersburg. It was clear that they didn't feel very comfortable in this old albatros, hangar, in such an industrial space, with shabby walls, with all those paintings and poets.
We're talking with Nastya about the possible reasons why Liza got a job at the gallery.
It could be a project aimed at whitewashing, at building a certain reputation. Like, she worked with Ukrainian and anti-war artists, so what complaints could anyone have against her? Or maybe it's a project to discredit the artists themselves.
But let's get back to the gallery and its employee named Liza. I watched her interviews, read the comments, so people are assuming you're with the FSB.
Yeah, not bad. Yeah.
They're assuming this is Louisa's gallery.
Yeah, cool.
And that the gallery's name, they tell, stands for Louisa.
Ah, nice. But that's cool. Yeah, that's fine. Well, cool. So yeah, that's fine.
To understand why Liza might have chosen an art gallery as her workplace, let me remind you what my first investigation was about. Last year, TSN found out that the girl who is called Putin's illegitimate daughter lives and studies in Paris. We received confirmation of this at IC, a private school of management in the field of culture and art right in the city center, and she graduated from there in the spring of last year. And by autumn, she got a job at the gallery. Here, they say, Liza was hired for an intern position. The girl who worked in this position before her was also from the same educational institution, which trains curators and art managers. One of the requirements was knowledge of Russian. That's why Liza was a good fit. She combines her job with her studies.
As for the economic side of the issue, regarding the economic aspect of the matter, in France, there is a state-established framework for such internships. It is a four-party contract between the organization, the school, the student, and the state. There is compensation for the work. I don't know if you can really call it a salary. The amount is determined neither by us nor by the candidate. It is set by the state depending on age and level of education, and it's quite modest. It partially covers the cost of education.
They say the gallery, being an association, exists thanks to contributions from the artists themselves. There is no Russian involvement. I'm asking about the job responsibilities of the young woman they call the technical coordinator here.
She is preparing several programs for September. They are more related to mental health than to any political or geopolitical issues. She prepares all the technical documentation, catalogs, and hands over the keys from one artist to another.
Lisa is described as shy. No one asked her about whose Crimea it is or her attitude toward the war.
We never directly asked her, so what do you think about the war? And we never received any statements from her. Well, in the end, we can't really do that from a strictly formal point of view. We don't ask such questions to other employees either. If she had any strong beliefs, say, pro-war or something like Crimea is ours, we probably would have heard something about it. We never asked direct questions during hiring, like, please confirm that you. And so on. Usually, just from some conversations and interactions, everything becomes more or less clear. Anyway, there's one thing that I think is important to point out. Yes, Liza Rednova helps us organize exhibitions, including those of protest artists and people with an active anti-war stance. And in the end, she is actually helping with this work. And it's precisely for these real actions of hers, for her contribution, that, in my opinion, her views should be evaluated. And whether she wants to make a public declaration that she is against the war or against Vladimir Putin, or even against her own family, and so on, that's her personal business. And, probably, it's not that simple.
Yes.
Liza hasn't been coming to work at the gallery since Nastia published the post.
Let's just say, she's not very comfortable with all the attention that's now focused on her, and probably she doesn't feel entirely safe because of it. I don't mean physical safety, at least psychological. We have already passed on, and will continue to pass on, of course, your request and those of other journalists to meet with her. She will decide for herself.
Dmitro and Alexander say that Liza is living an ordinary life.
We have no, so to speak, evidence or confirmation that she enjoys any special privileges. We don't see her being driven around in limousines or living a luxurious lifestyle. Judging by how she behaves here, she leads the ordinary life of a student who studies and works, lives in a regular, unpretentious neighborhood in Paris, and shops at Zara. I don't know if that can be considered an undue luxury. Maybe it can.
In the only new photo of Liza available to TSN, she's carrying a backpack from the elite Parisian brand Saint Laurent. This model is no longer officially sold, but on eBay it's being resold for $1,349. That's a little over 56,000 hryvnias. I asked Nastia what she's heard about Liza.
I've heard that she's a good girl, that she's quite modest and well-mannered. But at the same time, I've also heard that it seems like she's not from an ordinary family, that she's quite well off.
In the real estate registries, there is no apartment owner with the surname Rednova or Krovanigik in Paris or the district. So, most likely, she is renting the apartment. I asked the gallery owners why she changed her surname to that of Putin's friend, Rednova. They replied that they haven't discussed this with her. At the same time, according to them, after the information was made public that Liza works here, no one refused to cooperate with the gallery. And this is the Albatros space, where the second gallery is located, where Luisa Rednova also works. This space was founded by former Russian immigrants more than 100 years ago. Today, artistic life is once again thriving here, with exhibitions and shows taking place. Here's one of the performances. Liza is in the background. We found this video online. And this video featuring Liza is published by one of the Russian opposition TV channels. Here's the hall where Luisa Rednova was filmed in the video. At Albatross, we meet Mikola, a Ukrainian. He says he moved to France with his wife and children because of the war. He works here as a concierge. He says that, apparently, Putin's illegitimate daughter comes here. Maybe he saw her, but he's not sure. In the gallery, I met an Italian artist who is currently preparing for an exhibition. But when she heard that I was interested in Lisa, she replied that she knows her, but doesn't want to talk about it. And let me remind you once again, it was TSN last year that found confirmation that Luisa lives and studies in Paris under a new cover surname and a new patronymic. You can watch this story on the TSN YouTube channel. Just the first year of studies cost 8,000 euros. She disappeared from the public eye immediately after the full-scale invasion, although before that she didn't particularly hide herself, but also never openly confirmed that she was the dictator's illegitimate daughter. She organized fashion shows, played DJ sets, and ran an Instagram page where you could see her resemblance to her father. Here's something interesting. Last October, I visited Alka for the first time and asked them about the student Lisa. And it was in October that she was hired to work at the gallery. Among those we talked to in Paris, there were some who speculated that this was a way to prepare a platform for the girl to legalize her future life in Europe.
Why would she need such a silly cover as being an intern at our little gallery?
My first investigative piece about Liza was widely quoted by international media, including the French press. Among them was Radio France. This is Maxime Tellier, a journalist from Radio France.
In the fall of last year, I learned about her existence and that she was still in Paris. This happened after you did the TSN story. Before that, I didn't even know she existed, that Putin had a hidden daughter. Later, it also became known about 2 more children that no one had heard of before. That's when we decided this was a topic worth investigating, and I started working on it. This raises a lot of questions. First and foremost, this is Putin, who started the war against Ukraine 10 years ago and launched the full-scale invasion in 2022. This concerns us as well, since Russia is waging an information war not only against Europe, but specifically against France too. It's also about his secret life, about which almost nothing is known. This topic allows us to better understand how Russian power operates from the inside.
We decided to call Liza together, hoping to reach her directly, but unfortunately, we were only able to leave a detailed message on her voicemail, explaining the urgency of our situation. Despite our efforts and the clear message we left, Liza did not call us back at all. Furthermore, she consistently failed to answer any of our subsequent calls, whether they originated from the French number we were using or when I personally tried to reach her from a Ukrainian number, indicating a complete lack of response from her side.
The fact of whether she is Putin's biological daughter or not seems rather unclear to us. Yes, there are certain things that point to this, but she herself does not confirm it. There is no physical or scientific evidence for this. But overall, it seems to me that this isn't the most important thing in this situation. Even if we assume that your investigation really sheds some truth and she is Vladimir Putin's biological daughter, it's not entirely clear what that changes. So, there is a person who studies, lives, and works in a gallery that exhibits anti-war artists. And if we assume that she is Putin's daughter, then it's more, I don't know, a civic act on her part.
We discussed possible versions with singer and writer Irina Karpa. She has been living in Paris for 10 years now. She worked as the first secretary for cultural affairs at the Ukrainian embassy in France and actively promoted Ukrainian culture. I ask if she has heard about this gallery. She says no, but as for Liza, she has heard of her.
A fake last name, a fake identity, so that a person can live peacefully and well. As a Ukrainian, as a citizen, as a European, honestly, all of this just makes me sick. And you see, well, yes, there's this presumption of innocence. A poor girl whose father abandoned her. Well, I don't know. In short, that's the story. I think I wouldn't want to meet her on the street. She looks a lot like her father.
The main question is, does she live an ordinary life, or is she still using the family's financial resources connected to the Russian elite?
Most likely, it's some kind of quiet backroom deal. I don't really think this child just selflessly said, I don't need anything from you. I'll go work as a modest girl in a gallery. We don't know anything about that. So, does she use her mother's money, money so hard-earned from cleaning jobs all the way up to oligarch status? I think she must be unhappy. I mean, anyone who has any connection to Putin must be very unhappy and deeply disgusted.
Irina suggests that even if the girl is theoretically against the war, she can't say it.
No way, because that's a direct connection. Even if we imagine that she doesn't want to have anything to do with it, she will never show it. It's simply dangerous for her.
The vice president of the World Congress of Ukrainians, Volodymyr Kohutyak, lives in France. He is one of the organizers of the demonstration in support of Ukraine in Paris. I ask him if he knows that Putin's alleged daughter works and studies in Paris. Volodymyr says they are currently gathering information about this.
For now, we don't see exactly how we should respond. But the main point is that we've felt a significant increase in Russian propaganda in France since Donald Trump became president. That's why, for example, we're now putting a lot of pressure on the French authorities, on the French government, so that they finally recognize Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism. Because that will allow us to block various art exhibitions, and so on, as well as different conferences and scientific presentations by all these pro-Russian forces here, locally. For me, the priority is that if we had all the information, all the evidence, and so on, which we are currently gathering, then at some point, this person should not be in France. They could go to other countries that are partners of Russia, like, Korea or, for example, Iran. But in countries like those in Europe, they should not be living. And that's why one of our priorities will be to do everything possible so that this, woman leaves the territory of France.
Russian artist and writer Katerina Margolis has been living in Europe for a long time. We're speaking with her via video call. She exhibited her works in the gallery that later became Liza's workplace.
Honestly, the last thing that would have crossed my mind is that someone could be hired without informing any of the artists, and then be allowed to record video interviews and visit artists at their homes. This isn't naivety, it's a lack of transparency, not to put it even more bluntly. What we know about her mother is more than enough. And I think that not just anyone ends up under British sanctions. We fully understand that children can go through all sorts of things because of their parents. This isn't a matter of choice. None of us chose our parents or where we were born. But as adults, we do choose our stance on these things and the responsibility we take. In any case, basic honesty from the gallery owners would have meant warning people about this situation.
Under Nastia's post about the possible workplace of Putin's alleged daughter, there are hundreds of comments. And they're varied, from words of thanks to insults.
In France, Liza Rozova, or whatever her name is, Louise, isn't in any danger. But for people, especially Ukrainians and Russians who fled the regime, as we know all too well, it's dangerous. There are plenty of agents around, and loved ones could get hurt. So, to collectively defend the daughter of a sanctioned oligarch and, arguably, the main dictator of our time, while completely ignoring the risks this brings, seems a bit much to me. And then to attack someone who simply exercised their right to freely, so to speak, make their own decision to publish that post. Undoubtedly, Nastia Radionova became a target for the entire Soviet artillery, informers, Komsomol members, party meetings. And the very use of this kind of language, in my opinion, is very telling. How much people still live by some old dichotomies, how much they refuse to open their eyes and take an honest, independent look at what is happening now, and maybe even try to see it through the eyes of Ukrainians. That would be useful too.
In this situation, what matters to me is that, in fact, I have no questions for Louisa. I understand that journalists do have these questions. Personally, I don't, because she didn't make a public statement when I thought it was necessary. After that, her position could be different. We don't know that. My questions are for the founders of the gallery.
People expected some kind of declaration from us, like, attention, Putin's daughter works here, and that we didn't warn anyone. Well, first of all, for many reasons, there are de jure reasons and de facto ones. That is, de jure, of course, we have no right to disclose personal data. And on the other hand, I'd like to hear from those who are making accusations against us. What exactly were we supposed to do? Were we supposed to, like during Kristallnacht, right here, attention, a possible daughter of Putin works here, who looks a lot like him?
It will be interesting to see if Liza gets in touch with journalists, since she lives in France, a NATO member and one of Ukraine's key partners in resisting Russian aggression. And even though it hasn't been officially proven that Putin is her father, she is the daughter of a woman who became insanely wealthy precisely after meeting Russia's future president. And now this woman is under sanctions for, quote, consistently promoting Russia's attack on Ukraine. As it appears, at first Liza studied in Paris using money connected to the Russian regime. And if a 22-year-old girl doesn't want to have anything to do with her alleged father, then why take a cover surname and a patronymic of his late friend? Yes, children are not responsible for the sins of their parents, but they can state their own position. There are plenty of questions in this story, and so far, not many answers. Valeria Kovalinska, TSN, 1+1, Marathon, United News.